Micah, we're here. We're about to do this, man.
We're about to do this. Hey, we just want to say a huge thank you to Aaron Holt and Lead the Generation for allowing us to come back second year in a row.
Yeah, we made it twice. Hopefully we can become tenured.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But we are here and we're talking about networking at its best.
Yeah.
And really, what does that even mean?
Goodness. There's a lot of different principles attached to networking that we're going to dive into today. But before we get going, I'm going to ask you, Micah, why don't we give a little bit of background of how we ended up, kind of using the term youth networking quite a bit and like, why is that important? And then we'll talk about what it looks like today.
Yeah. So in March 2011, 9 years ago, I took a youth pastor's position at New Life Worship Center with Pastor Wayne Schaefer. And at that time, we were already, there was a youth group and we were doing well and we were thriving. And we did so much with other churches in our area that really what ended up happening is just through this wild dream and wild idea, we started working with all these other churches. And then next thing I know, I'm youth pastoring 2 churches, then 3 churches. And this thing is just going full speed. And we're doing 3 nights a week, 3 different locations. And while we're doing all of this, building this like campus like network group, we're also doing so much in the community, and we're networking with churches and pastors of all different denominations and all different styles, and we're meeting community people and we're meeting business people and other organizations, and we're just this like big mixed pot of businesses, organizations, and churches, and we're all working together. And and we were doing so much spiritually that we felt like, hey, you know what, we can do more. We can do more physically, we can do more in the active lives of students every day. So why not become a nonprofit organization? And that's where we became a Refuge Youth Network. And that's what really started it, is that we really cared for our community so much that it wasn't just the kids in our church. And like you and I have talked about this a lot, is where I think the calling of God in your life is very location based. And for us, it was like, you are called to this area, to this region. I wasn't called to the specific kids in the church. I was called to the whole region. I was called to youth pastor and to love this whole community of teenagers, and not just the teenagers, but the business owners, the young entrepreneurs, the college students, everybody in the community. And so for us, that's where this whole community networking mindset came. And we kind of coined the term youth networking, where you have churches, organizations, businesses, and individuals working together to see a generation know who Jesus is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually was privy to jump in a little bit after you had the three campuses running. I came in 2018. I moved in, 17, at the end of 17, I moved into the area. And actually it was before that. 2017 is when we started our nonprofit. Yeah. But basically through the process of deciding that we were going to do more, we were going to reach out. My background is in nonprofits. And so I came in, we talked, I was active member of the leadership team, and then came on staff that June after the nonprofit started. And, said, this is a great vision. This is a great plan. There's a lot of people that have bought into how we're changing lives of youth, but let's figure out what structure looks like behind it. And so I will give you a little tidbit. If there's something that you want to look for that might be helpful, Micah and I went through a book called Rocket Fuel that talks about visionaries and integrators working together. Honestly, without that, networking stuff probably wouldn't work as well.
Yeah.
So we were able to kind of understand each other. And walk through those things. And so today, what our hope is what we're going to share with you is, what have we learned, basically? There's a lot about what our model does, and we'll just preface this: we are not experts on this. Okay,
no, not at all.
Our model does not fit for every church, does not fit for every community. We just found people that were willing to say and invest in the youth this way in our community, and so. We do believe, and I just want to say this also, we do believe that networking can happen anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right? So it doesn't have to look like our model, but networking can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
So Micah, when you started diving in 2011 to, to 16, basically, what does it look like? What was networking looking like for you?
Well, the whole thing about networking is relationships, right? Like that's really what it is. When you're in a network, you're building relationships. And by just my personality, I love people. I love hanging out with people. I really love small business. I love local business. I love entrepreneurs. And so for me, a lot of my friends that I was making, a lot of the youth leaders that we had on our team, a lot of the people I was with on a regular basis were community leaders. They were business people. They were the entrepreneurs of the area. And so for me, the whole aspect of just being friends with these people, I started out as friends, and then we realized like this is a great network of people where we can do so much more. And so for me, it was always just reaching out into the community, because I have there's this part of me that loves being where you're from. Like, I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I got that Pittsburgh pride, but now that I've lived in Blair County and Altoona, like, this is my home, and I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to, to be this place. And again, I really believe that, like, you're called to a place. You're called to be there. You're called to be exactly where you're at. So many times we hear people say, oh, I hate my hometown. I hate this. I hate being here. I can't wait to get out of here, all this stuff. And that mindset just drives me crazy, because I believe you're placed in God puts you in a place on purpose, and what you decide to do with that. And so for me and Bethany, when we moved here, our purpose was to love the community that we're in and to build and cultivate those relationships. And, and a lot of times when you're in networking, you're getting different flavors of everybody. Yeah. There are so many different types of people in your network. So Ryan, how have you seen these relationships, like when people don't really maybe even believe what we believe in, or maybe don't like see things the way we do? How do we work alongside them? How do we make that work? How do you find harmony in places that you might not usually find it?
It's a great question. I would just say, first and foremost, the biggest part of that is vision casting, right? So the idea of taking a vision that you have to say, we are here not just to help on the spiritual side of things. We're looking at the emotional, the mental, the social, the physical well-being of our next generation. Yeah. And no one can deny, there in the Bible, there were people that did not like what Jesus did, right? Yeah. Very sure, but very clearly, but they could not deny the miracles that he performed, right? Yeah. So one of the things that we look at in our way of networking is, hey, if your background is completely different of ours, that's fine. We just want it to be undeniable that we are bettering the teens, bettering our community. And really, we're unapologetically faith-based. Absolutely. There's nothing that we do that is going to be denied of that. Yeah. And the cool thing about it is we talked about some partnerships that we've received, one of which is basically a family services, a social services organization in the area. We sat down with them and had a conversation. And while we were partnering with them, one of the things that they said to us was, well, we're not a faith-based organization. I said, well, we are, and we will offer the programming, but we're not going to deny our faith. And because of our stance and our foundation, we work together. Yep. Absolutely. I'm not trying to trick anybody into anything. Authenticity is the biggest part of networking. Yeah. And so the relationships that we build, I think that when people get us, right, when they get the kids, when they understand the vision, when they see all those pieces come together structurally, then they're like, well, we can't deny this. We kind of have to do this, like kind of have to be a part of this. And so I guess one of the things that what we've seen is there are people that are not about us too, right? Absolutely. And we're okay with that.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're not always going to have everyone for you. Not everyone is going to be for you, and not everyone is always going to do that. And so you have to very graciously walk that out. And the same level of respect you have those that are for you is the same level of respect you have to those that are against you. And that's sometimes hard, is because there are people that will rejoice in your failures, even in your community and even in that. But you just keep moving forward. You focus on the relationships that you have to continually build. And, and you continually grow in those relationships, and you just keep moving forward. You don't allow those relationships and that hate and that discouragement to come against you, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for the sake of a generation. You're reaching out. Now, what's interesting is, Ryan, you and I both were raised in church culture. We were raised in the church. We were raised in this. My dad was a pastor for years, and I was raised in this. And there was always this mindset that there is the community and there's the church. And you stay in your lane, and you stay in your lane, and you run, sometimes you'll run parallel together, but other times you won't. And what we have seen is that that's so wrong. Like, Jesus was all about communities. The Bible actually said he wept over cities in the Bible. All throughout the Bible, you see where communities and cities are important to callings. And so what we have to stop doing, we have to stop seeing communities as a threat to your ministry. They are an asset to your ministry. They are a friendship to your ministry. There's something you can do. A perfect example I am a horrible counselor. Like, I'm terrible at counseling. If you come to me with a problem, I'm going to ask you, did you pray? Did you, and if you say no, I'm going to tell you to go pray until you get the answer. Like, that's just my nature. But one of the cool things that we have found in our community is that we are able to partner with counseling companies in order to do that. And a lot of people have looked at us and said, what, you're crazy. They aren't Christian-based counseling. They're not Christian counselors. And why have you done that? So Ryan, why have we making that choice? Because this was a conversation you and I had to have when we first did this.
Yeah. I think that there's this undeniable part that we need to walk through where we recognize that our community is a puzzle, right? And this is the way that I like to visualize this. Maybe we have 16 puzzle pieces put together, but for us to fulfill what youth need, we need the other pieces of the puzzle. If it's a 100-piece puzzle and we only have 16, we're really not able to speak truth into all of their life. I mean, imagine the amount of time that we actually get to spend with them on a weekly basis. An hour, 2 hours, with luckily with some of our programming that we do with the breakouts, we can spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours with them a week. But that's not the majority of their week. And so what if you looked at your ministry, and what if we looked at our ministry? This was a conversation that we had. What if we looked at our ministry and said, if these people understand where we're aligned, and they're the ones that can back out and round out some of the emotional and the mental and the physical needs. I mean, we got guys that run gyms that help us out with putting kids in boxing classes. Honestly, this isn't a brag session. None of this would happen without God's blessing on a vision that God gave us. It was God's vision that he entrusted to us. And so one of the things that I wanted to I want to share with you is we do that because it gives us the opportunity to then round out some of the things that we might be missing. I am a teacher, coach, mentor kind of person. I am not the go catch the kid that's running away, or I do catch them when they run away.
We have done that several times.
But I'm not usually the one that is the pastoral role. I have other roles, and a lot of ministries we focus on the one strength that we have, or try to fill out the leadership principles across apostolic, prophetic, evangelistic, preachers and teachers, and we try to fill those all by ourselves.
So oftentimes we do, because and I think that's the biggest thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we see this all of the time, where I think a majority of the burnout that we see, especially in youth ministry with youth pastors, you're trying to fill all of those roles at once by yourself. And what you're doing is you're taking something and you are stretching yourself over all of those folds of ministry when you're maybe created to be strong on one or two of those. One principle that we have found that works is do what you're good at and bring in people where you're bad at.
Stay in your lane.
That's
in your lane.
That's his catchphrase. Let's
grow, kill, and adapt. Stay in your lane.
That's it. That's it. But what we have found, though, is that it's so important that we have one another and network with one another, because there are things out there that people do so much better and more effective than us.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it that the reason why we pull partners in is, if I'm not good at this, I got to find somebody that is. We don't want to be in a place where we pretend to be good at something or we drop the ball. We might as well have somebody that we really entrust with understanding what they do in their ministry or their business or their organization, and they understand what we do, and see if we can't work together. So often, I came from the background of working with juvenile probation, and the coolest part about working with juvenile probation as a community leader through a nonprofit Christian organization was that I got to walk in and see what ended up getting those kids probably to one of the worst days of their life, right? And then got to speak truth into their life at that moment. And I would challenge you with this question for your ministry. So often we might know what's happening in our community. How much does our community know about what's happening in the church? So
that's good.
Micah, well, we walked through this last year. What changed? What happened? Because we definitely went from a very local focus, and some things, especially this quarantine, has opened up the doors for some other ways for us to network. What's kind of happened throughout this last year with us?
Well, I think the biggest thing for getting, when you're expanding a network, you have to be very open-minded, and you have to be very creative, and you have to be willing to take risks. I think that's the biggest thing, is taking a risk, because anytime you enter into a relationship with another company, another business, another organization, another person, you're stepping into a risk zone, because you're not sure how that's going to pan out. You're not sure what you're going to do. And for some of us, that have been in this a long time, like we've become very proud of our reputation and our organization and all these things. But the biggest thing is like, we are building this networking for these kids, so that they can have everything that they need. And that's what I love about networking, is like, you get a call from a kid, I need this, I need that. You can call all these different people and be connected. But this last season, we've seen this huge shift where we've had to become very creative with networking. And really the biggest thing is social media. We have jumped on social media so much. I mean, from the TikTok to the Snapchat, and everyone on my team knows I was not a fan of TikTok before.
You called it Tik-Tik.
I'm pretty sure I called it Tik-Tik the first time I heard about it, but I was not a fan of TikTok. And then, then this whole thing hit, and we're like, okay, we need to do as much as we can. The other thing that, is not often talked about, the social media platform that we have found in just the last several months that has been huge for our networking, is LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn has changed everything for us in sense of becoming not just a national, but an international voice in youth ministry and leadership and networking from all over. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to get on LinkedIn and start networking with people because we have networked with people from New Zealand and Australia and England and Africa and all of these things. This networking and relationship is all built on the sense of changing the next generation, cultivating the kingdom of God in their lives, and allowing it to become real and allowing it to become very apparent to them who we are and what we do. And so for us, networking will have risks, but the risks are worth taking because you're trying to better what you are as an organization, a ministry, and you're trying to do more that you can for the community. Now, I guess one of the biggest questions we always get, and we might even already have it in the chat, is, well, how do we do this networking piece? Like in your community, you have all these businesses, you have a sub shop, a coffee shop, an insurance agent, gyms, all these. So how do you even begin to build those relationships with those business owners? Like, how does it even start? What's the first step in that?
Yeah. So I challenge you, what are your tools, right? For us, we would write newsletters and talk about all the great things that we needed to know or wanted other people to know, but we sometimes didn't have the factual actual, you know what I mean by that? Like, where you have the evidence attached to the community that you serve, right? So luckily we have some people that do census data and surveys and things like that, and you just got to know what you're looking for. We're looking at, for us, it was 7th through 12th grade, how many kids were there, how many families were in poverty, how many families come from single or single parent families or secondary caregivers, things that we are trying to work on, because Refuge is a safe place in times of trouble. How can we show this for the kids that we have here? And so what we did first was we built some tools, right? Although showing up is a really big deal for me, as the planner, as the integrator, if I have a tool, it's easier for me to share how excited I am about something, right? So we built a case study, and the case study is really something simple. It starts with a story from a kid, the actual numbers evidence, which a lot of people ask for, even though they pretend like it doesn't matter. A lot of them do care.
Real quick though, if you could explain to everyone that's tuning in the importance of doing the case study, because that was something that changed your whole mindset years ago, because someone's spoken to you about, okay, how many people are in your city? What is the demographic of your city? So hit on that real quick, because that was a game changer for us.
Yeah, Tony Campolo blasted me out of the water. I had him for a meeting, and I had shared all these things that I was incredibly passionate about, and saying like, this is what I see, this is what, and he said, give me the numbers. And I said, I don't have numbers. and as we need to be understanding the background of our economy and the background of our demographics more. And so whether you're serving in a rural or suburban or urban area, all three of those places have different demographic research that you need to spend time digging into. And so what I looked for were the highlight points. What are we going to focus on? If we're focusing on connecting kids to our community setting, if we're looking to do outreach based, if we're looking at how many kids we're doing evangelical work and like whatever it might be, how do we get that data to prove or show first from an outside standpoint of our community, and then doing that again with our kids, right? So then saying, all right, well, if the divorce rate in our area is 50%, our kids, it's like over 80%. So if that's the case, we should be able to show how skewed that is and be able to kind of to mention that to people. It's not a driving force for everything that we do. However, it is good to know the information because the stories are more impactful through knowing that information.
Well, I remember you telling me when you came on board and you started doing this, you told me specifically that we need to know who we're ministering to, so we know how to minister to them. Because up to that point, I had never done a case study. I had never looked into that aspect of networking to say, hey, what is it? What are the census? What does it look like? What is the demographic? What's the city look like? I had never even done that. But that has become a huge, important part of networking with the community, because you need to understand who you're networking to so you can understand how you should network.
Yeah. So we have a rec area around us, and they do a lot of sports-oriented things. And, we've asked them to do all-nighters for us before. And been great. I think we're over the all-nighter phase.
Yeah, we're past that age of all-nighters. Maybe some of you are too.
But as we did that, one of the things I recognized is most of our kids don't have the socioeconomic place in their life. They don't have the finances to be a part of those programs. So when I come to that partner and say to them, hey, do you have any sponsorships or any place that I could give a scholarship to a kid so that they can play baseball because they really want to play baseball this year? There's an open door attached to saying, well, they could say, yeah, maybe we have one or two. And I say, listen, 35% of our kids come from families that have single income, the single parent. They're at high risk of these type of things. And maybe this would open up a door for us to just have a conversation to say, this is where our heart is. Yeah. And anybody that loves kids is going to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely.
They're going to hear it and say, we want to see the next generation succeed too. I don't think that there is anybody, we had a lot of leaders, community leaders a couple years ago do some videos for us. And I don't think anybody in that video said, well, we're not really sure why Refuge is around.
No. Yeah.
We want to make sure that it's very clear to them why God allowed this to be in Blair County. We can't deny, one, our faith, but we also can't deny that we are here to try to do something different. And if you want to be a part, join with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and part of the networking thing that, so often that is kind of talked about, but is like the, kind of thing that, is hard is the financial aspect of this, right? And the biggest thing is we have money that comes from very unlikely places and very unlikely resource places, especially this past year. But the thing is networking, it helps you in your ministry spiritually, the relationship, but then also financially, it can help you. Listen, guys, when I first started out, I had a ton of kids and I did not have a budget to fit those kids. It just wasn't the reality. And you've been in the same boat. Yep. And this networking piece has helped us financially. And so as a youth ministry or as a youth organization, do not ever be afraid to ask for monthly sponsorships or ask for a little bit of financial help here and there. During Christmas time, Thanksgiving, these are the times we see our biggest donations, because it's an active thing. They can see, hey, Christmas is coming up or Thanksgiving's coming up, and be able to do this. So you should never be afraid to just ask for relationship. You should never be afraid to ask for, what can you do to be able to help? But the other thing that we've all often talked about, and that is really cool, is we don't just ask for things, we ask how we can do things. Yeah. And so, that's become something that, what can we do for you? What are we able to help with our social media? Are we able to help with your website, with your promotion materials, whatever it is? How can we help? Can we just come, rake your leaves, whatever it might be? We have found that, it's give and take in relationships and networking, because you don't want to always be seen as a leech that's always asking for things all the time. And a lot of times in ministry, that's what we're known for, is just give me money, money, money all the time. What is it that you can give back to the network that has been able to bless you, and the importance of that? And so the biggest thing is that networking is really important, and you can have a successful youth ministry and organization through networking if you work hard at it. Yeah.
We're going to want to build owners of the network, not users of the network, right? It is incredibly important to build owners, because that intrinsic value of what you've built is worth way more to your partners, to yourself, to the kids. I mean, I can't tell you how many pictures we've taken just for our partners to let them see how many kids they're impacting out there. And for them, they might not be able to be present in that location at that moment in time, but because of them, we are. And that's incredibly important to us. One thing my mentor gave me, and this is my last little piece of advice, is find what you're comfortable in for networking and stay there. If you want to go to Rotary or your Chamber of Commerce mixers or whatever else, find a place where you're going to thrive, be able to have good, meaningful conversations with others. And authenticity is key.
Absolutely.
If anybody feels like you're fake, you're not winning.
You're gone.
You're
done, son.
There's nothing else to it. Just be real.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here because I'm trying to build relationships for my youth programming. People are going to love that way more than you trying to trick them into giving you help.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be my last encouragement is find a place where you feel comfortable, ride in that place, and be authentic through it.
Well, and I think the biggest thing that we have to understand about networking is in all of the relationships that we have built over the years and we continue to build, and hopefully you build in your organization, in your ministry, is to remember that this isn't about like duplicating things that have been done.
Absolutely.
We are not about duplication. We're about multiplication. We're about multiplying the resources, the relationships, everything that we have with all the other nonprofits, the other organizations, all these things. We are about multiplying the impact, the relationship, because when kids and the next generation see that you are working together in unity, you truly do see a change in your community. We have seen our community change in so many great ways because so many people have set aside all of the boundaries and all the limitations, have come together to work together. And so networking at its best is done with the mindset of how can we bless our city? Not me, we. How can we as a community better our community and better one another? And so for us, those are just some things that we have found where we're at and what we've been doing the last several years in networking that have really helped us a lot. And we hope that you get something out of it. We hope that you learn. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know. You can drop your email into the chat and we will contact you. And then also we're on all social media.
Yeah, we're on everything, I guess.
Refuge Youth Network, we're there. Join us, follow us, connect with us, and on all those platforms. But thanks for taking the time to listen to us today.